Hello, and welcome to Stocks Down Under. My name is Stuart Roberts, and I'm one of the co-founders of our service. And joining me from Perth on the morning of Friday, the 4th of August, 2023, is Dr. Mike Jones, who's the Managing Director of Impact Minerals, ASX IPT. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Stuart. Great to be with you.
So, you and I were introduced back in February, and you had a big smile on your face at the time, and no surprises. You just arranged to get hold of the Lake Hope high purity alumina project in Western Australia, or at least I'm calling it the high purity alumina project. Talk to us about how you landed on Lake Hope and what you're hoping to achieve there.
Yeah, Lake Hope, it's certainly appropriately named, and we're hoping that it's giving big hope to the Impact shareholders after many years of doing exploration. So, look, people who know us know that we've been looking for a world-class deposit for a long period of time, 16 and a half years since we listed. And in that time, we've had a couple of near misses, as we like to call them, some nice high grades, but really nothing ever grew to any particular size. But during that period, we were always interested in looking at other projects to see what was out there. But most projects you come across in the space are normally, they've been around the traps a few times. There's normally some significant issues with them, whether it's metallurgy or whether it's Aboriginal heritage or in the wrong country, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, we came across the Lake Hope project, which is here in Western Australia. It was a geologist that I'd sort of known from afar, Roland Gotthard, for a while. And he'd been putting a few things out on LinkedIn about this pretty interesting project that he had. And he was doing some home-baked metallurgy in his kitchen. And it's a bit of a funny story, really. But we ended up thinking we had something similar to what he had on our own ground. And cut a long story short, the responses that we were seeing in some of the geophysical data were from something completely different. But during that process, I came across, I got Roland to send me the information memorandum that he'd put together. And when I saw it, it was one of these sort of moments of, oh no, I'm going to have to do this project, because the advantages of it were so significant compared to anything else that we had. And would put us immediately on the road to development over the next few years, that it was a case of, right, we have to do this. And so we've jumped in boots and all, for those of you who've followed the story so far.
Right. So let's talk about those advantages. Chief among them being in the state of Western Australia. So jurisdictionally, it can't get much better than that. You've got your heritage clearances, so you're ready to roll in terms of building out this project.
It is. Everyone knows, of course, Western Australia Tier 1, and it is a great place to work. We did receive our Aboriginal heritage clearance basically for mining. We still need to come to a mining agreement with the Naju people, but they're generally very pro the mining industry. They've worked with the industry for many years. We've done a few surveys with them on a couple of projects. This one went very well because it's an active lake system. Or active salt lake system. There's very little heritage in that particular area. It's quite remote, and so we basically got the go ahead, and that's actually under the new ACH, or Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act, which passed the 1st of July, or came into effect 1st of July this year. And that's caused a lot of consternation through the industry. But look, for what we do, for where we are, there's really not been much change under the ACH laws. And so we're very happy to be in this position at such an early stage. So it's all guns blazing from here.
All right, and let's talk about the product. You mentioned before Gotthard doing the metallurgical test work in his kitchen. It turns out that if you transfer that over to a more conventional setting, you've potentially got a very low cost project. If things pan out as they seem to be panning out so far.
Indeed. I'll just might just take a step back, look at some of the geological advantages of the deposit. So the material, which is alumina, aluminium oxide, occurs in a number of minerals, and Roland's blinding insight was to think about what minerals could occur that would be relatively easy to extract, and then he came up with a metallurgical process for that particular set of minerals, and then went out and found the deposit. So it was definitely upside down thinking compared to the normal convention. So and
I mean, that's just proof that metallurgists are a bit smarter than geologists, right?
Well, actually, Roland's a bit of a jack of all trades and a master of a few too, I will say, and he's a very clever guy. So The Lake Hope deposit is these alumina-bearing minerals, occurs in the top 2 meters of a salt lake that's fairly remote, and the material is naturally extremely fine-grained. I mean, most of it is like less than 500 nanometers in size, so that's extremely small, and a lot of it's almost amorphous. So that gives us a number of advantages because it doesn't need crushing, it doesn't need grinding. It's basically very high grade ore. We put the resource out recently. It's 25% alumina, so it's free digging, and it's almost I wouldn't call it direct shipping ore per se, but what it allows us to do is to take the material off-site and then build our processing plant in an industrial yard, which will be much easier to process. So on site we won't need access to significant water. We won't need access to power because we can do it all on renewables. It's basically a digger and some trucks to move the material off site. So from an environmental point of view, this project it'll be one of the lowest environmental footprints of any mine, and certainly in terms of the dollar return that we're going to get on the material that we take out of the lake. As I like to say, it's going to be the world's shallowest, highest grade open pit anywhere. So there's a huge number of natural advantages which lead to very cheap mining, and we can talk about the processing perhaps as we go along. But at the front end, the OPEX for running the mining is going to be literally about 5% of the overall OPEX. For those of you who know financial models, that's an extremely low number. So that's a vast...
I'm tempted to write the check now. I can buy the whole thing for $45 million. Come and work for me, Mike. I promise I'll be a very nice boss.
Absolutely. So we're hoping to be worth a whole lot more than that, Stuart. So you better have a bigger checkbook by the time we're ready to sell.
Right. Okay. So off the charts in terms of the cost, off the charts in a positive way. And obviously you're going to have to raise some capital to do this. What do we need to do in terms of environmental approvals to move forward from here?
So the initial advice we've had from our environmental consultants is that because of the nature of the project and this sort of free dig in the base of the lake, and it really not requiring much clearing at all, is that we're likely to be able to sort of move forward, possibly even with our EPA, like an EPA approval, because you normally only go to the EPA if the environmental disturbance is going to be significant. So we will start the baseline studies will start in October this year, so both flora and fauna. There are no documented rare species of either of those that have been found to date in the area, so that's a big plus to start off with. You never know what you might find once you get in there and do the detailed work. But as I say, initial indications are that the environmental approval should not be an issue, and we will hope that will be the case as we go forward.
Okay, so we all know the market opportunity for HPA is outsized. Plenty of 21st century applications require this, but you're going to have to negotiate offtake at one stage. What's your plans there?
That's correct. Look, that is the area that we need to build out, and we've said that from the start. We don't have those sort of capabilities as yet. We've made some strides into looking to find people, starting to establish relationships with potential consumers or people that can lead to those consumers. And so in the bulk commodity space like this, and it's the same for silica sands, it's the same for kaolin, you need these offtake agreements to really be, certain of generating the revenue. And that can be a process that can take a couple of years because you need to provide product to them up front, to the consumers, so that they can do all the test work that's required, and that takes, as I say, a couple of years to get that going before you'll be able to get to that offtake agreement. So that we are very aware from a strategic point of view that that's our main focus of activity right now.
Right. Now, what's great about what you're doing is that there's at least one success story out there on ASX to be able to say we're the next XXX. In this case, it's A4N, Alpha HPA. Now capped at something like $1 billion with the success of their projects. Talk to us about what those guys have done right and how you can potentially follow in their footsteps.
Yeah. Well, look, 5 or 6 years ago, Alpha HPA was, I think it was called Kohlrabi Nickel, and they had a laterite project in, I think it was in New South Wales for nickel cobalt. And they came across a solvent extraction process, which also indicated that they could possibly extract alumina, high purity alumina out of the clay in that laterite and in that weathered profile there.
Right.
Anyway, it wasn't too long before then, but they discovered that they could actually, that the solvent extraction process would work on a chemical feedstock, which they could basically purchase and do a deal with Orica, and the explosives and fertilizer company out in Queensland. So they're basically not mining. So they switched really into an industrial chemical company, and they're using this chemical feedstock. So, but the significance of that is this, is that the high purity alumina space, up until recently, until Alpha made their breakthrough, the incumbents were producing the HPA predominantly from the refining of aluminium metal. So that gets mined from
That's an expensive way to get it.
It's an expensive way to get it. And it's also a dirty way to get it.
Right.
Obviously, with all the red mud, it's very energy intensive, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of focus on that part of the industry right now in terms of its environmental footprint. So part of the process of trying to improve that process, if you like, a number of companies came up with hydrometallurgical approaches. And so Alpha was the first. And we also have FYI resources in the space, and they're looking at a hydrochloric acid leaching of kaolin. And the significance of the hydrometallurgical processes is that they are significantly cheaper in terms of their OPEX, operating costs to produce, and possibly as much as sort of 30–40% cheaper, possibly more than the incumbents. So this is one of the reasons that people are pretty interested in this space. If the hydromet processes work. We also have a hydromet process, but ours is a sulfuric acid leach. It is proprietary. We have it patented at the moment, and that's under confidentiality for 12 months. And we believe that our operating costs will also be significantly lower than the incumbents, and certainly cost competitive, I think, with Alpha. But Alpha showed that they're the first company to get this right in the space. They were like us, as I say, small junior explorer. Nobody was really interested in 5 or 6 years ago, and then boom, here we are now. $1 billion market cap, and I'm pretty confident we can follow in their footsteps.
Right. So let's talk about what comes over the next 12 months for you. We talked about environmental baseline studies a little while ago. What else will you be working on?
So the principal thing is the metallurgical test work and getting product that we can put in front of customers. So we're hoping that by the fourth quarter of this year, we'll have sufficient quantity. One of the advantages of our metallurgical approach is that we can produce material in bulk relatively cheaply. And so that will be a great advantage for us. So once we've got that material, it'll be into meeting with the customers, getting stuff into test work and pushing that forward. And that'll be, as I say, not just 12 months, but a 24-month process. The other thing we're doing is the various mining studies. So we're planning to lodge our mining lease application later this quarter, by the end of September. The heritage clearance was the big one. We put out our maiden resource last month, and so those two things were critical to lodging the mining lease. So that lease, that application will go in, and so there's a whole lot of mining studies that will need to go on there. We're doing logistic studies in terms of where the best place to build the plant is. Currently, that's looking like Kalgoorlie, and there's a big industrial yard that's been designated on the south side of town there, and Lynas are building their big processing plant there at the moment for rare earths. So we strongly think that that's going to be, probably the best case scenario at the moment. But we're doing all the economic modelling to see where that is.
All right.
So
you could end up, for instance, in Kwinana if the economics work.
That's correct. Yeah, we understand Battery Alley is getting fairly busy. Not too sure how much space there is down there now. So, but that's certainly one thing that we're looking at. There's pluses and minuses either way. So there's one of the things is what grants might be available in order to be able to build the plant. And Kalgoorlie is probably a better place in order to get some development money to help build the plant, should we decide that that's where it's going to be.
Right. Now, many investors won't necessarily know you, Mike. That accent tells me you're not from around here. I understand your PhD was from Imperial College London. Tell us about yourself and what led up to this point.
So I did my first degree in mining and exploration geology at the Royal School of Mines, Imperial College, and then did a PhD afterwards in gold mineralisation in South Africa. And the rocks there were greenstone belts, which is what we have here in Western Australia. Obviously, very big on gold and nickel. And so I was lucky enough to be offered a job and a visa back in 1988 by Western Mining, WMC Resources.
The company that's created half of all the new companies on the ASX in terms of the talent. Everyone is anyone got trained there.
It is incredible. And when Roy Woodall, who was the director of exploration and world renowned for the success that Western Mining had, there was a eulogy for him at Diggers and Dealers a couple of years ago. My friend Mark Bennett read it out, and he read a list of all the people who'd worked for Western Mining, not just in geology, but across mining engineering.
It would have taken a heck of a long time.
It just went on and on and on. It was quite incredible. So they certainly created something special, and I was very fortunate to have worked for them, for 6 years there in their project generation team. And I used those skills, and I worked for a variety of consultancies, set up my own consultancy with a business partner, and we ran that for a few years. I'm just trying to remember now, it's that long ago. But eventually we decided, look, surely we can run an exploration company as well as some of our clients. and so we listed in November 2006. And of course, it's been an emotional roller coaster since then. The GFC, we were in the uranium space over Fukushima. There was the downturn, 4 or 5 years of that. And we're coming out of that. Then we had COVID. So, we've done pretty well to keep the company going. We've always remained active. We always put money in the ground. And I think people know that we're known for our good ideas and our good geology. We've just been a bit unlucky in terms of finding the big discovery. But Lake Hope is it. We found it on LinkedIn rather than by traditional exploration methods. But I'll take it whichever way.
All right. Dr. Mike Jones, well done on picking up Lake Hope, and good luck in the next 12 months as you build it, and 12 to 18 months as you build up this project, and keep up the good work.
That's great, Stuart. Thanks very much, and look forward to an update.